Welcome to Waking Up Tired, the podcast that explores narcolepsy through the voices of those who live with it. I'm Dice Spillane, and I live with narcolepsy in Australia. In this episode, we're focusing on one of the most disruptive and misunderstood symptoms of narcolepsy, sleep attacks, also known as microsleeps. These sudden lapses into sleep can happen without warning, in the middle of a conversation, at work, behind the wheel, or even during a family gathering. And they're not just inconvenient, they can be dangerous, isolating, and emotionally exhausting. Today, you'll hear from Jana, who lives with narcolepsy type 1 in Australia. Her story is honest, vivid, and at times confronting. From spilling wine mid-conversation to slamming on brakes after waking up and realising she was just about to drive through a set of traffic lights. Jana also shares the subtle signs she's learnt to recognise post-diagnosis and the emotional toll of being misunderstood for so many years. Meet Jana.
My name is Jana. I'm living in Australia with narcolepsy. I first noticed something was wrong when I was around 17. I was always falling asleep at my desk, at work, and in the car. It took around 17 years to find out what was wrong. I was diagnosed at around 31. I was told that I have narcolepsy type 1. I've always worked full time. I'd come home at the end of a day. I lived with mum and dad at the time, and I'd sit down, be on my phone, and then next minute I'd hear her screaming my name, and I'd be like, whoa, what the hell? Like, how did that happen? That was quite a common one, which I didn't realize. Obviously, I was just totally exhausted, not knowing and thinking that it was normal, and just getting through a working week and then sitting down at the end of each day, I'd be out like that, not even realizing. At the end of a working week, go and meet up with girlfriends, and you're sitting on the couch and you're all just chatting about things and, haven't caught up, and it would be, boom, I'd spill my wine everywhere over everyone. Oh my God, where did that come from? And be like, so embarrassing. But I used to actually joke. I'm like, I swear to God, I'm like borderline narcolepsy or something, because what the hell? I just don't understand how these things happen, which wasn't borderline. I was very much so. So yeah, they were like my main ones. Pre-diagnosis, there was a little bit different to like post-diagnosis, because obviously then you're medicated and stuff. For me, I've learned a lot more of the subtler signs. So just prior to being diagnosed, I was working with this young girl, not someone that I knew in particular. I'd started a new job. I knew that something was going on, and this is where I started feeling other symptoms. She said to me one day, oh, you okay? Looking at my eyes, and I could feel that I was going into what I called at the time sleepy spell, but the sleep attack. And I said, yeah, it's okay. I'm just having one of my sleepy spell things. And that's when I realized at the time I went to the toilet, my eyes go super, super red. So that's one of my things now that I know is a sign as well, when the sort of change in my eyes. And now being like post-diagnosis, one of the ones in particular that stick out to me was Christmas a couple of years ago with my partner at the time's family. And we've all sat down for lunch, and it's a beautiful roast, and it's, you got seafood and stuff as well. And I'm like, okay, loaded my plate up, and I'm like, oh, didn't get any prawns on there. Okay, I'll come back and get them. I'll circle back, sit down, that's fine. I can get it on the next one. And I fell asleep halfway through my plate. So I never got prawns that Christmas. So he's just actually sort of just went, okay, off we go. I'm just going to take you away now. Like, I didn't even quite realize. And that's never happened before. But obviously waking up early in the morning at Christmas with your daughter and everything, it had already been a huge day. So yeah, as soon as I got some food into me, it was just like my body was shutting down. I didn't even finish my plate. Another one that sticks out after post-diagnosis is the feeling of like being able to do everything, and you get through a whole day, but say you're having a conversation of a nighttime, which I never used to do, but at a certain point in time or a certain point in the conversation, I'd be lapsing into sleep and be talking absolute gibberish, not knowing what I was talking about. I'm talking about whatever dream I'm having at the time, and okay, we're going to let you go now, bye. But that happened quite a lot. I actually really don't know how I didn't crash over the years, because it was happening in terms of just pre being diagnosed as well. It ended up being, I couldn't even drive 5 minutes down the road without starting to nod at the wheel. I used to pour like cold water on myself and be pinching myself, slapping myself. And even now, being diagnosed, medicated, I still can only do like a 20-minute radius, has to be in flowing traffic. Afternoon sun, absolutely not. It sort of lulls me to sleep. I just have to know my limits, really. But like I said, it can be quite sneaky sometimes. So It's just being really aware and really careful. I know that if I've had a huge day, I might have to have a sleep before I drive. Yeah, but it can be really sneaky, which is quite scary too. But lucky for me, I haven't had an accident like some others do, because I was doing it for years, not realizing, and with my daughter in the car, you know. I think a lot of people go, oh, how did I get here? Sometimes, you know, you sort of go on autopilot. Maybe 12 months before I was diagnosed, I'd only just dropped my daughter off at school, come through one set of lights, and then there's another set of lights there, and I just nearly drove straight through it. And it's like I sort of didn't even realize that I've lapsed, and I've sort of come to and gone, oh my God, slammed on the brakes. That was like the closest that I ever got. That was like, what the hell is happening, you know? Where you're questioning yourself, but you're not necessarily talking about all these things to people, because there's a certain element of kind of like shame to it, because doctors are telling you it's normal, you're a single mom, you're working full time, it's normal, you're all right, everyone is like that. So you're like, oh, okay, it's okay, like, and why can't I get through a day? Like, do better, be better, try harder. So there's an element of shame that you're not talking about these things either. God, maybe I am just lazy, like, what's wrong with me? You start to believe it. That's not necessarily what you're feeling, but that's what everyone's seeing, that's what everyone's perceiving, then you start to perceive it yourself. I think it can be quite damaging, really. I was known as 100% the lazy daughter. My sister has always been quite OCD. You know, she still is. When I started being medicated, I was like, oh my God, I'm actually quite OCD as well. When I have the energy for it, I want to do something exactly how I want to do it. But I was like, oh my God, this is how it feels to actually be able to start a task and go from start to finish and do it exactly how you want to do it, and not just rush through it and get it done because you're just exhausted and you just, okay, I'll just get it done as quickly as possible. Pretty unreal feeling. I remember just pre-diagnosis, I definitely was like, oh my God, what is wrong? That's when the sleep paralysis, where you start seeing the figures and things like that. And I remember telling my mum at the time, and I think she thought I was going a little bit crazy, and so did I. I was like, I know that this sounds insane and I've not experienced this before, but this is what's happening. Like, what the hell? This isn't normal. Like, surely this, like, not everyone experiences this. I know that some people do, but not to that extent. Am I crazy? Have I just lost it? But then there's like the flip side of that, where it's like, I'm pretty sure you don't know that you're losing it when you're losing it. I don't know. Quite confusing, and really sort of shatters your self-confidence and self-image in a lot of ways. You don't want to mention that because you're worried what's going to happen, and you've got a kid and everything too. So if you're like just blatantly truthful about really how it is and what you've been experiencing for so long, like, you just give them a snippet and they're not even believing that, and they're trying to point you in other directions of like depression and whatever, and they're not actually listening. So telling them the full truth and full scope of what you've been feeling, that just seems like, no, I won't be doing that because I'm not being listened to anyway. So what could happen? What used to happen back in the day, we would have just been locked up and seen as crazy, off you go, schizophrenic. I definitely think that I would have been one of those people back in the day, because even the understanding of mental health this day and age, and sleep disorders, but back then that would have just been like, whoa, away you go, for sure. That's terrifying. Scared to even tell the full truth of what we've been going through, in fear of what would happen. What are you going to do? Where are you going to send me? Or, because yeah, I definitely would have been diagnosed. I reckon probably they would have thought I was schizophrenic or something, in terms of like, yeah, your hallucinations and all that. Sometimes for me, that's one of the worst things. And now I look back and I wonder, how much of my memories are possibly not reality? You know, like, I remember hearing TVs turn on and just little things like that, where it seems like such a normal thing. But now knowing, yes, it could have happened, because I was, say, living with other people at the time, or mum and dad, and, you know, they're upstairs, downstairs. But then at the same time, it's like, maybe it didn't. How much of it was actually happening and how much of it wasn't? Or, you know, hearing someone call out your name and you're like, what? Did you call me? Just strange things like that. And now I know, obviously, when I go to sleep for nighttime as well, oh my God, now I know certain things where it's like, it's 11 o'clock at night and I'm like, who is whippersnipping? And I'm like, oh my God, that's me. It's definitely not someone whippersnipping at this time of night. But I joked with friends, well, I swear, like, I'm borderline narcolepsy or something, because I fall asleep at my desk, and then, you know, look what I've just done. I've just, out of nowhere, at the end of a big week, you know, spilt my drink all over you guys, and it came feeling out of nowhere at that point in time. COVID hit, I was made redundant. So I thought, because I thought office work was killing me. So I thought maybe I need an on my feet role. So I went back into retail, and it was still happening, these sleepy spells that I called them. And I thought, no, something's not right. And then in came the cataplexy feeling, which I hadn't had before, laughing and stuff. And I was like, whoa, what is that? Just this weak sort of feeling in here that sort of felt like, oh, I haven't had that before. So along with everything else, like my sleepy spells is what I called them, and not being able to fight sleep, but I typed in funny feeling when laughing at the end of a particularly hard day at this job. And I thought, there's something not right. I need to get this checked because I hadn't felt that feeling before of cataplexy. Went home and I typed into Google, funny feeling when laughing, and narcolepsy came up. And I opened it up and I just started bawling my eyes out. I called my best friend and I was like, I have every single symptom, like every single thing on there. Like, I have this, I know this is what it is. I know it. She kind of knew it as well because she was probably one of the only people that I felt comfortable in telling the full scope of how I had been struggling and stuff. So she was like, yeah, I think you've definitely nailed it. Definitely sounds like it. And I'd been to doctors many times before with the excessive daytime sleepiness and telling them I'm falling asleep at the wheel and falling asleep at my desk and I'm just stuck in this constant loop all day and basically living on energy drinks and like could not get through a day without it. I'd be so exhausted too. I remember my daughter was only 3 at the time and it was just me and her. And I remember some weekends it'd get to the weekend and I couldn't get out of bed. I could not get out of bed. So I'd just have to turn the TV on. I'd be able to get up and get her some food and activities and I would just be asleep on the couch next. Like I couldn't. And just the feeling, the extra thick level of like mum guilt for that stuff as well. And it was like, what is wrong with me? That's probably the first time that I Googled it. And that was funny feeling when laughing. And then it was not long in terms of me going to the doctor and saying, I'm not going anywhere. I've Googled my symptoms, but I don't care what you think about me Googling my symptoms because I know that I have this. I'm telling you now, and I've been struggling for years with this. Every single symptom I've got, and this particular doctor hadn't seen me. I don't have a regular doctor. I've never been a sickly person. So I never had a regular doctor. I'd just go to Joe Blow down the road and when I needed to, when I was sick or whatever. So there wasn't a family doctor that I'd gone to, for years, and they're known for being more caring. So I went there and paid for it. It wasn't just a bulk bill. So I thought, okay, you got to listen to me. I said, I'm not leaving until you give me a sleep study. And he was like, even him was like, okay, it's very uncommon, but okay. Yeah, sounds like it could be, but it was very disbelieving in his tone and everything. And I said, I'm not leaving until you give me a referral for a sleep study. So he went, okay, yep, I'll give you the referral. The sleep study place said, no, we can't just accept that. You have to go and see the specialist first. And if they then refer you on, then we'll accept it. So righto, so then I booked in with the sleep specialist and the first meeting with him was just so validating. He knew as much as I did with me just explaining it and him actually listening to me, that he was 99.9% sure that I had it without even having a sleep study, just by listening. And it was so validating. And he never forget telling me that I've done a good job living up until now. And I just felt I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I did both because I was like, oh my God, I feel so seen and validated. And at the same time, like, yeah, I have done a good job living to now. Like, wow, thank you. Like, oh my God, finally someone's listened. So there and then he put me on some trial meds as well before the sleep study because like I said, he was as sure as I was with me just actually telling him and him listening. I've been to many of them before and they all tried to put me on antidepressants and I'm going, you're not listening to me. I've been depressed before. This is not depression. I'm not depressed. You're not actually listening. I'm like exhausted. And I know that, exhaustion and fatigue can come with depression, but you're not actually listening to what I'm telling you. I think I might have had to wait maybe like 6 weeks to actually be booked in for the sleep study maybe after that. I think you wait about the same 4 to 6 weeks or something for the results. That first time I sort of Googled, it wasn't long after that finally that I just went, that's it. I'm not leaving until you listen and we get to the bottom of this. He was very knowledgeable in himself. He's been great. I've been really lucky. So he did know a lot about it. He's treated a lot of people before. He's also worked over in America and Canada and all over the world. So he's a bit older than what I'm going to do when he retires. But he did know a lot about it. So he actually had some knowledge on it, which is also not common. So no, he didn't necessarily give me anything, but he did know a lot about it. And then me being me as well, I had already been reading books, looking up everything at that point in time as well. I've definitely got this. I have every single symptom and I've been struggling with this for years and it all makes sense. I think I'd heard it probably from Juice Bigelow, Male Gigolo, the way it's depicted in that movie. That's probably where I'd seen it. But in terms of really knowing what it is, no, that's probably where I knew and heard the name narcolepsy and knew that it was a sort of sleep disorder, because I can't pinpoint any other way that I'd heard about it per se, other than that movie. You could find a lot in terms of, the Facebook groups, and there was a lot of American ones. And then there was the Narcolepsy Australia support group. There was a lot of people in there, not necessarily a hell of a lot of information or a hell of a lot of activity in that group at that time as well. A few posts here and there, which generally go back and read through. But in terms of like information and finding actual supports, meeting people even with it, there wasn't much at the time. And the only other one really, I did the Project Sleep, learning how to tell your story and everything. That was quite a cathartic experience. And then also, you're hearing other people's stories, but that's American. So there wasn't much in Australia. Living with Narcolepsy Australia, done a lot in that space now in terms of the online catch-ups and everything too. Like, I didn't know about those. I couldn't find anything about those either. And it was only through Hypersomnolence Australia that I would have seen the catch-ups. So yeah, there wasn't a lot. Living with Narcolepsy Australia, doing a great job in terms of there being more information and supports out there now in an active group. So that's definitely been great in terms of people being able to actually post useful information, which is not allowed for whatever reason in the other Australian group. Say if you found a video or some kind of study or even another group, like there's many different groups for many different things on Facebook. So I didn't quite understand why you couldn't post things that were going to be useful for the community. So yeah, the Living with Narcolepsy Australia group has been fantastic for that. Huge credit to the community. Very useful. And it's so needed. It's so needed when you start talking to people who have never spoken to anyone or met anyone in 30 years of having it, or people who are just diagnosed or their parents want to know a bit more about it, and you start connecting with all these people, you realize how needed it is and the advocacy work and just how little there is in Australia.
Thank you to Jana for sharing her story with such honesty and strength. Her experience with sleep attacks, both before and after diagnosis, highlights just how complex and sneaky narcolepsy can be. It's not just about being tired. It's about living with a condition that blurs the line between wakefulness and sleep, often without warning. Jana's story also reminds us of the emotional weight that comes with being misdiagnosed or dismissed, the shame, the self-doubt, and the constant pressure to do better when your body is simply just trying to cope. If you're listening and recognising parts of your own journey, then please, speak to your doctor. You're not alone. There is support available within the narcolepsy community. Join us next time as we continue to explore narcolepsy symptoms through real voices and lived experiences. Thanks for listening to Waking Up Tired, Narcolepsy Symptoms Explained.